Fascinating study, and of course he always does a great job, and it's just a joy to be able to listen to him. And I always enjoy listening to BJ as well. We get to hear him tomorrow night, and Esther is also a fascinating study. And so this has been a good opportunity for us to focus on some of these very courageous women in the Bible. And Abigail is very, very courageous. She will show great intelligence, great wisdom. She will show great courage as she even risks her life getting in the middle of a mess and creating a peaceful situation out of a potentially very violent situation. So Abigail is a fascinating study. Before we talk about her, I want to talk to you about Yadkin County, North Carolina. In Yadkin County, North Carolina, the tobacco farmers every year at the harvest, and this is not a commentary on right or wrong, just talking about the harvest here. But the harvest time, they would bring in the harvest, and then one of the farmers would have a chicken stew. And a chicken stew is not just the dish that you eat, but it's the event. And so all the farmers would get together and they would have these big cauldrons that would be full of milk. And they'd throw milk and butter and salt in there, and the various farmers would bring in some chickens and throw chicken bits in there too. And then they would eat it together and have a big time and celebrate the harvest. Well, they still do that. And when I was preaching for the church in North Carolina, every year in November, they had a chicken stew, and they would build fires out in the front of the church building and burn up half the lot there. No, not half of it. Burn up some of the grass there. And they would invite the whole community. And there'd be a lot of people show up. One of the elders would get up, and he would welcome everybody and encourage them to stay or come back the next day for the gospel meeting. They always start the gospel meeting the day after. BJ knows about it because he showed up at our chicken stew one Saturday, the Saturday before he was starting a gospel meeting for us. I don't know if you ate any of the chicken stew, did you? A little bit, yeah. For most people, it's a little bit. Unless you grew up with it. And if you grew up with it, it's give me some more. So that's just typically the way things are. But that was a big deal, and that was a tradition in that part of the country. You get done with the harvest, you have a chicken stew. Going back 3,000 years ago in Israel, you shear the sheep, it's time for a celebration, a big feast, a big dinner. And that's going to play into what we're talking about here tonight as we look at Abigail, the peacemaker. We're going to come back to the idea of a peacemaker at the end and see just how important that is for you and I, even to this very, very day. 1 Samuel 25 is where we're going to be. 1 Samuel 25 is the passage that talks to us about Abigail. That's about all we get. There's a little bit of a mention of her later as we see that she and David did have a son together. Their son together would be Chileab, or sometimes he's called Daniel, so the two names there. So I kind of gave away something there, just kind of ruined the ending. But stay with me and we'll see how all of that comes about. We're looking at 1000 BC, approximately, and so 3,000 years ago. 1000 BC in Israel was like this. The king was insane with jealousy. The king of Israel was obsessed. He absolutely wanted to kill David. And the Philistines were constantly attacking Israel. There was always a danger of the Philistines rising up against the Jews and attacking them. There could be raiders coming through. There could be people taking your things away from you, attacking your family. Just not really a very nice place to be. 1000 BC. David is in trouble 1000 BC. He's on the run. He's a renegade. He's a fugitive. Saul hates him. You know what happened with David when he was a young man. He went down into that valley and faced the Philistine champion and defeated him, didn't he, when nobody else would go down in there. That Philistine, I suppose, was the biggest among the Philistines, and he was trained to be a warrior from the time that he was very young, Goliath. The biggest man in all Israel, if the expression is literal, was Saul. He was head and shoulders above everyone else. He wasn't going down in there to fight that giant. This young man, David, goes down in there with his confidence and trust in God and hits that giant in the forehead with a stone, knocks him down, goes over and cuts his head off. That's David. David is a national hero at that time. David, this national hero, then is put in command of one of Saul's armies. And he leads troops in and out constantly, and he's very, very successful because God is with him. But then, because of his hero status and his fame, the women start singing, don't they? Saul has slain his thousands, and David has slain his 10,000s, and Saul is jealous. What, is he going to get the throne next? Well, yeah, but not in the way Saul was thinking. David is anointed by Samuel to be the next king because of Saul's unfaithfulness to God. But Saul wants to kill David, and David has to flee. David's wife, Michal, who was the daughter of Saul, helps David get away. David runs off into the wilderness. A lot of things happen. Long story short, he ends up having, at first, an army of 400 men. Later it grows to 600 who are in debt, who are upset with the way things are in the country, who are in trouble in one way or another, some of whom are David's family members. And they come down there to be a part of this little army that David ends up having of 600 men. This little army of 600 men, though, is still no match for the army of King Saul. King Saul pursues David relentlessly. On one occasion, he almost has him. When he receives a message, Saul does, that the Philistines are attacking again, so he pulls away from David. At that time, David escapes. Later on, David has opportunity to kill King Saul when Saul's in the cave, and he chooses not to. And so after that, for just a little while, Saul decides he's not going to come after David. But David is on the run. He doesn't trust Saul. He cannot. Saul really wants him dead. And it's around that time that David is going to meet a woman by the name of Abigail. Look at 1 Samuel chapter 25. Verse 2, Now there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel, and the man was very great or very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. The name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail, and she was a woman of good understanding and beautiful appearance. But the man was harsh and evil in his doings. He was of the house of Caleb. We'll talk about the description here of Nabal in a moment, but let's think about Abigail. It's interesting, the Bible points out that she was an attractive woman. And that may have some importance when you take a look at her character and see who she was. For obviously character is much more important than that. And a woman can be of average looks and still have the character of Abigail. But in some respects, it's remarkable that one as intelligent, talented, gifted, and beautiful as Abigail was, would be so humble. And indeed, her humility will be a part of what saves many lives, as recorded here in 1 Samuel chapter 25. So the Bible says that she is a woman of good understanding. She's wise. She's intelligent. And there are words used here, and you see the way she acts really bears this out, that indicates she is good and she is a joyful person. So generally a very positive person. She's a joyful person and she is a kind person. 1 Samuel chapter 25 and verse 3, a woman of good understanding. But now her husband, if you've looked at Abigail's situation before, you know he was nasty. He was a horrible person. In every possible way, he was absolutely horrible. So we see him, 1 Samuel chapter 25, look at verse 2 there. Now there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel, and the man was very rich. Nothing wrong being rich. Job was rich, and he was righteous. Abraham was rich, and he was righteous. But this rich man won't share, and that's a problem. This man was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. The name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail, and she was a woman of good understanding and beautiful appearance, but the man was harsh and evil in his doings. He was of the house of Caleb. Now, there are a lot of words added there in the English with relationship to the word Caleb. Some say, oh, well, he's a descendant of Caleb. Maybe, but that word there indicates and does actually literally mean a barking, ferocious dog. And when you take out the words that are added to make it flow smoother in the English, it looks more like that's a description of him. This man is like a barking, ferocious dog, and he's harsh and evil in his doings. This is the kind of man that nobody can talk to, who doesn't care about anybody else. He's arrogant, he's mean, he's harsh, he's temperamental, he's very, very difficult to get along with. And that's Abigail's husband. What a contrast between the two. It may have been the case it was an arranged marriage, who knows, but what a mismatch here. Look at verse 17. Now, we'll show the context and how all this flows. Let's cut into the story here just a little bit. Now, you understand when I say story that I recognize this as an accurate, pinpoint accurate historical account of real people and real events. So if I say story, you know that I mean just the way this is flowing. All right, look at verse 17. Now therefore know and consider what you will do, for harm is determined against our master and against all his household, for he is such a son of Belial that one cannot speak to him. So that's a servant talking to Abigail. So he's talking to her about her husband, and he says, you know your husband is a son of Belial. That is, you know he is a worthless person, and nobody can even talk to him. You know that's the case. So you better think carefully about what you're about to do. That's what this servant is telling Abigail in that particular context. Verse 25, now Abigail here is talking to David. And here's what she says about her husband. Please let not my Lord regard this scoundrel, some translations say, but that's the son of Belial again, which is an expression that means a worthless person. Don't regard this worthless Nabal. For as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name. His name means fool. So probably a nickname that stuck with him. I can't imagine some mother naming her son when he's born fool. So probably a nickname that stuck with him, and when you read about him and see his character, for good reason. His name is Nabal, and as his name is, so is he, and folly is with him. But I, your maidservant, did not see the young men of my Lord whom you sent. And then look here at verse 36. Now Abigail went to Nabal, and there he was, holding a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunk. Therefore she told him nothing, little or much, until morning light. She's got something important to tell him, but she can't, because he's too drunk. So here he is, the kind of man that's mean, rough, gruff, arrogant, rude. Nobody can even talk to him. He's a fool in every possible way. He is a worthless man in the way that he behaves. And he's a drunk. And he's married to a beautiful woman of good understanding. A very wise, courageous, kind, joyful, compassionate woman who is about to save a whole lot of lives here because of her intelligence and wisdom and kindness. there's David. 1 Samuel chapter 22, verses 1 and 2 talks about his little army and his army, and they are going to come into contact with these people. David's army on the run. Some of his men go out and come into contact with some of the servants of Nabal, Nabal's shepherds. And at one point in time, David's army surrounded Nabal's shepherds to protect them, to defend them. And David's army took nothing from them. They had the strength, they had the power, they had the might, they had the weapons. They could have killed them all and taken whatever they wanted to. Instead, they decided, we'll just protect you. And so those shepherds out there in those fields at night could lay down, go to sleep, not worry about it, because there was some of David's men surrounding them to protect them, and David's men were very, very good to them. Now, time is going to go by a little bit, and they're going to have a chicken stew. Well, not exactly a chicken stew, but one of those traditions. It's sheep shearing time. And David knows at sheep shearing time, it's feast time. There's going to be a big feast. And Nabal has a lot of sheep, and Nabal has the means to have a huge, huge feast, and he has the means to help out David and his people. So here's what's happened with David. Not only does he have these 600 men, but their families have come down to be a part of David's traveling fugitive army. And so David's got a lot of mouths to feed, a lot of people to take care of. Well, he knows that he has done things that were kind to Nabal's people before, and that Nabal is very, very wealthy, and that Nabal has the ability to help out him and his people. And so he goes and asks, just whatever is convenient for you, whatever you have at hand, whatever you deem is right, can you give us some of this? Well, that's going to cause a very, very big problem. Look at verse 8. Ask your young men, and they will tell you, therefore, let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we come on a feast day. Please give whatever comes to your hand to your servant and to your son David. And so David sends some men with this message, and they are to remind Nabal of the fact that, hey, we've been really good to you. We've taken care of your people before. Can you do something for us? Can you give us some food? Now, Nabal is going to show a horrible attitude here. But David is going to plan something sinful. David's response is not so good either. And Abigail is going to get into the middle of this mess between these two men. So there's the request. Can you help us out here? Give us whatever is easy for you to give, and that will help us out. Verse 9, so when David's young men came, they spoke to Nabal according to all these words in the name of David and waited. Then Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is David? And who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants nowadays who break away, each one from his master. Well, he obviously knows something about David, doesn't he? He knows he's the son of Jesse. He knows that he has broken away from his master. The reality is that David is very well known in Israel. In fact, Abigail is going to indicate from what she says that people know a lot about David and who he is. Nabal is just being rude and insulting. He's saying, no, we're not going to help you. We're not going to show you hospitality. He has the ability to, but he's not going to. And he's not just saying, no, I don't think so. He's insulting him in the process. And there are words used here to describe the way he did this. Verse 14, he reviled them, that indicate that he was very belligerent and angry. He was loud. He was yelling at them in a very rude way. Who are you? Why should I help you? Oh, there's servants that break away from their masters all the time. Why should you get any help from me? And so Nabal doesn't just say no. He's really nasty in the way that he says it. Well, David may have a little bit of pride inside of him because he doesn't like the way Nabal has given him an answer here, and he's angry and he wants vengeance. Look at 1 Samuel chapter 25, verse 12. So David's young men turned on their heels and went back, and they came and told him all these words. Then David said to his men, every man gird on his sword. So every man girded on his sword, and David also girded on his sword. And about 400 men went with David, and 200 stayed with the supplies. Now one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, look, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, and he reviled them. And now David and his men are on their way right now, and they're coming to kill all of the males. So Nabal's a wealthy man. He's got a large household, all these servants, a lot of people he's taking care of too. But David's angry. He's going to kill every single male that is in Nabal's household. The servants find out about it, and they go to tell Abigail, and here's where you see Abigail showing that she has the ability to think very, very quickly. She knows what she needs to do. First of all, she knows she doesn't need to talk to her husband. Oh, someone says, now wait a minute. Women are to be submissive to their husbands. Yes. Isn't she bypassing the authority of her husband? No. I'm going to explain to you why in just a minute. Abigail is smart. And she is doing exactly what she needs to do. Nobody can talk to Nabal. He's not interested in hearing what anybody says. She knows that there's no good that can come from talking to him about it. She is going to have to take action to save her people. If she doesn't take action now, immediately, David's army's on the way, her husband's going to die. And all the men that are there in that household, and all the males that are there in that household. David is furious in a way too extreme, and he's seeking vengeance, a vengeance that he should not be seeking, but he's determined to have it. And Abigail needs to act quickly. So verse 15, the men were very good to us, and we were not hurt, nor did we miss anything as long as we accompanied them when we were in the field. So now the servant's telling Abigail, look, this is who these people are. David's men were so good to us. They protected us while we were out there as shepherds in the fields. They were a wall to us both by night and day. All the time we were with them, keeping the sheep. Now therefore know and consider what you will do, the servant says to Abigail. For harm is determined against our master. So Abigail knows her husband is in danger. Harm is determined against our master, and against all his household. For he is such a son of Belial that one cannot even speak to him. He's such a worthless person, we can't even talk to him about this. So you're going to have to do something, and think very carefully about what you do. We're all going to die, at least the men are. Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 sheep already dressed, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and loaded them on donkeys. Where do you think she's sending those? Out to David and his men to intercept them. She said to her servants, go on before me. See, I'm coming after you, but she did not tell her husband Nabal. We'll talk about that more in a moment. But she knows she needs to act fast. She gets these things prepared, gets them loaded on the donkeys, sends her servants with the donkeys on ahead. She says, I'll catch up with you. You go on, make sure that you intercept these people and give them these gifts. And then she's going to come up behind them when she is ready. And so, verse 20. So it was as she rode on the donkey that she went down under cover of the hill. And there were David and his men coming down toward her, and she met them. So picture this situation. You know that these men, 400 of them, are coming to kill all the men in your household. And so she's out there. Her servants have gone on ahead. She's riding on this donkey, and here come David's men down the hill at her. Do you think it took courage for her to stay there and wait for those men to come down there and talk to them? Of course it did. She didn't know what they were going to do. Those men could have come down there and just easily killed her, but she waits till they come down, and she talks to them, and they're going to take her to David, and she's going to talk to David. Verse 21, now David had said, surely in vain I protected all this fellow has, in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belongs to him, and he has repaid me evil for good. May God do so and more also to the enemies of David, if I leave one male of all who belong to him by morning light. So David's telling Abigail, I'm going to get revenge. I'm going to kill your husband. I'm going to kill him. How does that sound? When somebody's that angry, I'm going to kill him. David's serious. Now when Abigail saw David, she dismounted quickly from the donkey, fell on her face before David, and bowed down to the ground. So somebody could get all silly and foolish and say, oh no, look at this woman bowing down on the ground before this man. Let me tell you something. This woman is smart. This woman knows that this is no time for arrogance. She's not an arrogant person anyway. This is time for humility. When people get mad at each other and there's danger and risk involved, and people just puff up their pride, and this one's proud and says this and does this, and then this one, his pride is hurting, so he's going to puff up and say this and do this. It just gets worse and it escalates, doesn't it? She's de-escalating, isn't she? She knows exactly what she's doing. She's intelligent. She's wise. She's cunning in a good way. And she's very, very humble. She gets off that donkey and just falls down on her face in front of David. Now, it's amazing to me what she says here. Verse 24, so she fell at his feet and said, on me, my Lord, on me let this iniquity be. What? You didn't do it, Abigail. Your husband, the fool, he did it. But she's saying, no, David, let this iniquity be on me. Then she's going to make her case. And after she makes her case, then she's going to say, forgive me. Look at what she does. She's so clever about the way she does this. So she fell at his feet and said, on me, my Lord, on me let this iniquity be, and please let your maidservant speak in your ears and hear the words of your maidservant. Now, the fact that she has gotten down on the ground before David and is speaking to him respectfully, and she has shown great humility, has gone a long way, hasn't it? Please let not my Lord regard this scoundrel Nabal. I know he's a son of Belial. I know he's worthless, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, your maidservant, did not see the young men of my Lord whom you sent. I wasn't there when the message came. I didn't see that. But I know my husband's a fool. Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, since the Lord has held you back from coming to bloodshed, and from avenging yourself with your own hand, now then, let your enemies and those who seek harm for my Lord be as Nabal. David, God has stopped you. You are on your way to kill people you shouldn't have. You are on your way to shed innocent blood. I know Nabal's a fool, but David didn't have a right to seek this kind of vengeance. And she knows that too. And she says, you've been stopped. Well, who stopped her? I stopped him, I'm sorry. Abigail did, didn't she? But who does she give the credit to? God. She believes God is working in this, and that God is going to save her and her people. And she's giving God the glory and the credit. God stopped you. He held you back from this bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hands. She's going to help him to think about what he was trying to do. And now this present, which your maidservant has brought to my Lord, let it be given to the young men who follow my Lord. And so I love the picture here of Abigail. And this is something that Sarah put together with AI. And even though the computer does a lot of that work, you still have to know how to put in the right commands and things like that to get the picture that you want. So it's a great picture. And you can see in that picture Abigail with a gift that she's giving to David there. And now this is the present which your maidservant has brought to my Lord. Let it be given to the young men who follow my Lord. Please forgive the trespass of your maidservant. So she's taking the focus completely away from her worthless husband. She says, put the iniquity on me Look at how God has stopped you from doing something you shouldn't have done. But now, please forgive me for this iniquity. She didn't do it, but she's saying, put it on me, but forgive me. So David's mind now is thinking more in terms of who she is rather than who her husband is. Please forgive the trespass of your maidservant, for the Lord will certainly make for my Lord an enduring house, because my Lord fights the battles of the Lord, and evil is not found in you throughout your days. I know who you are, David. I know God's on your side. I know you're a righteous man, and you're on God's side. I know you're a good man. You haven't done anything wrong. I understand that. But, David, if you come and kill all these people, then you will be doing something wrong. Look how she puts all of this. Yet a man has risen to pursue you and seek your life, Saul, but the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living. You will be bound together with life, so that you are safe with the Lord your God, and the lives of your enemies he shall sling out as from the pocket of a sling. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord has done for my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you ruler over Israel, that this will be no grief to you, nor offense of heart to my Lord. So stop there for a moment. Look at how much she knows about David. And look at how much she trusts in God. And she knows that God is going to make David the king. And she knows that God is on his side. And she wants David to understand this. When you become king, you don't need a stain against you like seeking vengeance against people who wouldn't give you food. And so that's what she's telling him. It shall come to pass, when the Lord has done for my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you ruler over Israel, that this will be no grief to you, nor offense of heart to my Lord, either that you have shed blood without cause, or that my Lord has avenged himself. But when the Lord has dealt well with my Lord, then remember your maidservant. When you become king, don't you want to be a king that knows you don't have a stain against you like this, where you took vengeance where you shouldn't have, where you shed blood that you shouldn't have? Don't you want to make sure you don't have something like that on your conscience and against you when you become king? She's very clever, isn't she? So David is going to respond to Abigail here, and his response is very positive. Then David said, Abigail, blessed is the Lord God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. Now he recognizes it, doesn't he? You know what? God is involved in this, isn't he? He did stop me from doing something foolish through this woman who is so wise. And blessed is your advice. And blessed are you, David says to Abigail, because you have kept me this day from coming to bloodshed and from avenging myself with mine own hand. David recognized, you know what, Abigail, you're right. I was going to do the wrong thing, and you stopped me from doing the wrong thing. And blessed is your advice, and blessed are you for stopping me from making a mess this way. For indeed, as the Lord God of Israel lives, who has kept me back from hurting you, unless you had hurried and come to meet me, surely by morning light no males would have been left to Nabal. So David received from her hand what she had brought him, and said to her, go up in peace to your house. See, I have heeded your voice, and respected your person. Abigail just saved her husband's life. Well, now might be a good time to go talk to him about it. So she tries. Now Abigail went to Nabal, and there he was, holding a feast. There's the chicken stew. It's the sheep shearing time, so you got to have the feast. He's holding a feast in his house. This one's like the feast of a king. Well, he's very wealthy, so he can do that. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunk. Therefore she told him nothing, little or much, until morning light. I can't talk to him now. I got to wait till he's sober. So she waits till the next day. So it was in the morning, when the wine had gone from Nabal, he sobered up. And his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became like a stone. Oh, there's a lot of debate. Did he have a heart attack? Did he have a stroke? What happened to him? I don't know. It doesn't say. It says his heart died within him and became like a stone. He's had a major heart issue, major heart incident here. He's reacting to what she has said. I don't know if it was fear of the fact that he was about to be killed by David and she saved his life. But looking at his character, probably not. He's probably furious, isn't he? He's so mad, most likely, that his heart stopped working properly. He's going to survive a little bit longer, and then God's going to kill him. Verse 38, then it happened after about 10 days that the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. Isn't that interesting? Let's think about this. Abigail has made it clear, and David has come to understand that she's right. David has no right to seek revenge. To whom should vengeance be left? To God. God shows David, you just leave it to me, and I will see that justice is done. And God kills Nabal. Now, I want you to think about this too. Anyone could die at any moment because of their sin, and God would have the very right to do that to us. But he doesn't, because of his love, kindness, mercy, compassion. Sin is worthy of death. But God doesn't do that, does he? He doesn't just strike people dead suddenly all the time. And from passages like Ezekiel chapter 18, we understand this: God takes no delight in the death of the wicked. God doesn't do this lightly, and he doesn't like doing it. Which tells you something about Nabal, doesn't it? That's how nasty and evil this man was. He was so nasty and evil and wicked that God said, he didn't say it, but God does take the vengeance on him, and God kills him. And so Nabal is now gone, and Abigail's no longer married to him. So you know what David decides would be a good idea? I think I should marry her, David thinks. Well, he already has one wife, that's Michal, and he's about to get two here, Ahinoam of Jezreel, and then also Abigail. He sends a proposal to her, she accepts, she comes to him, and they are now married. Eventually, they would in fact have a son together. So what an amazing woman. She saved a lot of people's lives, didn't she? And she got between two really stubborn and angry men and created peace out of a really, really dangerous situation. So let's think about a few things that we can learn from her that we can apply to ourselves. Obviously, it's just full of it, isn't it? Full of things that you and I can make application to ourselves. Here's one thing I want us to think about. A woman's submission to her husband excludes sin. Here's what I mean. A woman, yes, submits to her husband. We know that's true even under the New Covenant, Ephesians chapter 5, 1 Peter chapter 3, 1-7, Titus 2, 4, and 5. We know that's true. But what if the husband says, you know, the Bible says you have to submit to me in everything. Now, let's go out and do some drugs, let's get drunk, let's get some illegal firearms, and let's go shoot up the place, and let's just have a wild night on the town. You got to submit to me in everything. That's what God said. Should she do it? Of course not. So that's what I mean. A woman's submission excludes sin. If her husband is wanting her to do the wrong thing, she still has an obligation to submit to God first. That's true in any situation where there's authority, isn't it? You always respect the authority unless the authority requires you to do something against the will of God. And then God always comes first. So that's the case here. Abigail did nothing wrong. In fact, she did everything right as far as I can tell. And she saved the life of her husband and of all these other men there. Here's another lesson for us. Problems are best solved with kindness and humility, aren't they? There may be a rare occasion where you really have to stand strong and firm and in a bold way in certain particular situations, but that's going to be more rare. In most situations, personal situations, situations affecting brothers and sisters in Christ even, the best way to handle them is with kindness and humility. And that's what she did, isn't it? And she saved the lives of a whole lot of people, got between two angry men, and turned peace out of a nasty situation because she was kind. and because she was humble. She didn't mind getting down in the dirt on her face before David to talk to him. She didn't mind giving David some help and giving him some gifts. She was kind. Here's another important lesson. Love for family and caring for people is so important, isn't it? I love Abigail for that fact. So many other things, but this. She loved her family, didn't she? And she was very serious about taking care of her family. She saved her husband's life. And then all those other people in the household, the servants and the servants' children, all the males, she saved their lives too. She cared about them as well, didn't she? People weren't for her things that you could step on and use to get what you want. That wasn't how she viewed people. She saw individuals that were important, and she wanted to help them and save them and care for them, including her family. And that's so very, very important, isn't it? Here is a woman with great intelligence, great talents and abilities. Apparently she's just really, really genetically blessed in so many ways. And not only is she greatly intelligent and wise, she's also very beautiful, and so she could have been exactly the kind of person that knew how to stomp all over everybody else and take advantage of them to get what she wanted. She's not like that. She's the opposite of that. She sees people as valuable and important. She cares about them. And even in the way she talked to David, when he's coming to possibly kill her husband and others in her household, the way she talks to him shows great respect, doesn't it? Even for David. Abigail was a wise woman, an intelligent woman, a courageous woman, and a godly woman. The Bible doesn't say this, but I suspect from what we know here in 1 Samuel chapter 25, this woman is in paradise with God. And someday, you go talk to her. See if you can get some more information about what has happened here. She's also someone who's humble and kind and respectful. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Creating peace and saving lives, is that important even now? Jesus said, Matthew 5 and verse 9, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons or children of God." Do you want to be called a child of God? Then be a peacemaker like Abigail. Look for ways to bring about peace even out of difficult and stressful and tense situations. That's the way the Lord wants us to be. And Abigail is a great example of that. And so it is the case that Christian women should look at Abigail and say, you know what, I can be an Abigail. Just think about that. You can do that. Every one of you women in here tonight, you can be an Abigail. Some of you already are. But you know you can be an Abigail. You can be just like her. You can show that wisdom, that godliness. You can show that love and kindness, the compassion, all those things. You can show all those things. And men, don't forget to take a look at Abigail and think in terms of, you know what, there's a whole lot we can imitate too, isn't there? We need those characteristics, the love and the mercy and the kindness and the compassion. And we need to think carefully about the way we handle relationships and interact with people. And we need to be peacemakers as well, don't we? And so I'm just so amazed at what God has given us in His Word over and over again. And I'm so happy that He gave us 1 Samuel chapter 25. And He has preserved that for us all of these thousands of years so you and I can look at Abigail and say, what a great woman. We need to be like her. She was a very, very powerful woman. And we appreciate so much the record of her. So 7:54, I think the kids come in at 8. Is it over? Okay. You want to make comments or take a break? Here's a comment. Oh, that doesn't sound like a good one there. When someone says this verse. Then she arose, bowed her face to the earth, and said, "Here is your maidservant, a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. That has to do with her coming to David and accepting his marriage proposal. Well, again,
I will wash your servant's feet. Sounds like somebody I know.
it does, and it shows her humility again, and she's willing to come into this situation as his wife, not taking any special privileges. Is that what you were looking at there? Yeah, that's right. Yes, that's right. I'll wash their feet. Yeah, she's amazing. Dave?
Yeah, the other thing is that, with Abigail, there was a custom, and if I remember correctly, there was a requirement to take care of traveling strangers
That's right.
and the hospitality law. And her husband was breaking it. And so she was just doing the right thing by the local laws and customs of saying, no, we need to go take care of these strangers.
That's right. What Nabal did was just a huge no-no in that day and time. Not just a big insult, but it was something nobody does. You don't stoop to that level. But Abigail was willing to do what needed to be done, wasn't she? Anybody else got a comment? All righty. Thank you for your attention.